Hi, this is Stephen Beschloss with America, America.
And I'm Mark Jacob with the Stop the Presses newsletter.
And this is On Target.
And today we want to talk about what's happened to one of the crown jewels of American journalism. And I'm talking about CBS News. It used to be the home of Walter Cronkite and Edward R. Murrow, and it still has 60 Minutes, in whatever form. But it's not a crown jewel anymore. It's actually a distressed property, and it's been purchased by the pro-Trump Ellison family, and it's put in the hands of a right winger named Bari Weiss, and it's a news outlet that's causing a lot of worries, from people who care about democracy and care about a free press. They recently, a few months ago, settled with Trump on his bogus lawsuit and paid him $16 million. They Bari Weiss recently pulled a really important news story about the Trump regime sending U.S. residents to a torture prison in El Salvador,
For
and
60
and now
Minutes. Yeah.
they have a new reinvented CBS Evening News that with an express mission to follow and platform experts less, to be more of whatever anyone thinks, the whatever opinions the public has, we're going to put them out there, kind of in a real kind of insulting and not fact based way. And there's just a lot of scary signs here that CBS News is becoming just the kind of news outlet that Donald Trump wants all media to be. Stephen, where do you want to start with this?
Yeah, well, there's a lot there, and I mean, I've shared with my readers, definitely about the 60 Minutes piece that was Deep Six by Bari Weiss. A very bad sign, and it was just over, the new year when this new nightly news program with Tony Docuvel came out, and as you suggest, he sort of introduced it. In a way that doesn't encourage any of us who think that the responsibility of journalism is to speak truth to power, to confront the realities of our country right now, which includes sort of looking at the threats that democracy is facing, and to address it in a way that's sort of clear and that doesn't simply platform all of the leadership of the Trump regime. And the fact is, what our new head for the CBS Evening News, and it was exactly as you were saying. I mean, he talked about. And I want to give the quote exactly. I mean, they were missing the story because they were taking into account the perspective of advocates, not the average person, and that they put too much weight into the analysis of academics or elites and not enough in you. Well, okay, that sounds sort of good, except you know what? If I want to make a judgment about the COVID vaccine, I'd really like an expert to be the one that they're talking to, not Joe Smith and how he's feeling about it.
You just don't want to
Um,
stop any person on the street and just ask them what they think
yeah,
about it?
well, yeah, and what it does mean is that the more you essentially are platforming everyday Americans, and I believe in the value of knowing what people think. That's good, but I think we have to also recognize that we're in this period of incredible manipulation by a propaganda machine, of the Trump regime, and that's very dangerous for the truth. And we are in a point where the legacy media is in danger, and partly because they seem to be more interested in getting along with Trump. And less interested in being, the genuine fourth estate that speaks truth to power.
Yeah, there seems to be a real push to undermine the idea of facts, of documented facts, and to make everything into an opinion. That well, that's just your opinion. The whole alternative facts thing, and that's just toxic to the idea of shared facts in a democracy, and where you actually do believe statistics that come out of your government, and you do make decisions about public policy based on those. I mean that this whole, well, whatever theory anyone comes up with is worthwhile thing. That's how you get some crazy person going to a pizza restaurant and starting shooting the place up because he thinks there's some sort of conspiracy to molest children in the basement because somebody told them that online. This is
Right.
that's not what we want journalists to do. We want journalists to find out people who know things and discover facts that are out there and present them to the audience so that they will make
We
better
like it or not.
decisions.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. And look, there was a segment in this sort of evening news program that focused on, RFK Jr. Reducing the vaccine schedule, and his comments to an expert was, so what do you say to parents, who are celebrating? That's his one
right,
of his
right,
questions, and then he says, parents are now going to, at the end of the piece, parents are now going to have some options for themselves, rather being in more danger, more
right.
dependent on their own personal physicians to figure out what's the right thing to
Well,
do.
this whole like, well, they could do their own research kind of thing. Well, no, people can't do their own research. They're not equipped for that. And that's the same kind of stuff they've been doing with this health insurance stuff, where they say, well, they can just negotiate directly with the health insurance companies. Yeah, right. Some guy, some Joe Schmo, me or some other Joe Schmo is going to be able to like make a deal with health insurance people. This is just disinformation. This is just crazy stuff that they're trying to pull. And one thing as we're talking about this, I wonder whether you want to talk about Tony Dokopol is how you pronounce his name,
Right.
and he got off on totally the wrong foot by he like said that he promised to be more accountable and more transparent than Walter Cronkite. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I mean, this was before he'd even had started his first show. He's like talking about how he's better than Cronkite. Well, as is going around the internet now, the first show was, a kind of a disaster. He didn't know what order the segments were in, and I mean, he even like said, "Well, this is really having a bad start." And I feel like, Stephen, to some extent, you have people who don't know what they're doing there. Bari Weiss is not a journalist.
Yeah.
Her career is as a professional opinion haver, and and you and I are being opinion havers right now. But we've also done journalism, which
Yeah.
means finding out facts and being disabused of your notions. I mean, as a journalist, sometimes I thought I knew what the story was, and then when I actually looked at things, I would find out I didn't know, and that, oh my, I didn't even think about this, and that this is would be far better way to frame my story. So, but Bari Weiss doesn't have that experience, and that's why you had the situation that she had with 60 Minutes, where the reporter doing the story tried for weeks to get the Trump regime to answer questions, to engage with her on the story, and they wouldn't. They just ignored her, and yet Bari Weiss pulled the story because they didn't have comment from the regime. Well, that, as the reporter pointed out, that gives the regime veto power on the story if you
Yeah.
let that stop you. And
That's right.
all of any of us who have dealt with sensitive stories, and I sure as hell did when I was an editor at the Tribune. We've seen this kind of stuff before, where the people who are going to look bad in a story try to jack you around, pretend they're going to comment, don't comment, and just they're trying to delay you and mess you up. And
Yeah.
and Bari Weiss has none of that experience.
Yeah, I mean, look, I mean, I think what we're faced with, I think we can say from the beginning, their inclination is to rely on, what comes from the White House, as if that's their main responsibility, and we're all supposed to just go along with that, and they're justifying it by this idea that the trust in media is down, and this is one area that it's the facts are on their side. Trust in media is down,
Right,
and their point is, and I'm going to give you sort of again sort of the specific language that they use. You know, people don't trust us like they used to, and not just us. They don't trust all of legacy media. Well, guess what? There's a reason why,
right,
and the main reason, and it's particularly the Republicans who do not trust the media. There was a Gallup poll, not long ago that said exactly that the number of Republicans who, strongly trust the media was 9%.
Huh.
The number for Democrats was over 50%. I believe it was 51% who strongly or trust or for a fair amount trust in the media. And the point is, they have been hit over and over and over again by this idea that it's all fake news. You
Right.
can't trust what the media has been telling you. The decline has been rapid since 2020. Well, guess why? It's not hard to sort of know why. And so, if there's an assumption, and this is the business of this, if they have an assumption that by, kowtowing the administration and just platforming whatever it is that Stephen Miller or Pete Hegseth or Donald Trump has to say is somehow going to increase their numbers, I think they're sorely mistaken.
Yeah, I would say so. And another thing to mention here is that the Ellison family, which is real Trumpy family that took over CBS News, is also making a bid for they want CNN as well. And and so it's I mean, we're in dangerous times because Trump has also said, in normal circumstances, somebody who was a politician would who was in government wouldn't like try to put his thumb on the scale and decide which company is going to buy which company so much. But Trump has said specifically that he's going to decide who in effect the fate of CNN, or if whether that deal goes through. And I mean, it's back to what I said before. I think really do think that this is what Trump wants all media to be like, is how
Yeah.
CBS is operating, which is real deference to the government. And there's a healthy adversarial relationship with the media and government.
There needs to be,
There
again,
should be.
there's a reason why, you talk about a fourth estate, you talk about essentially a fourth branch of government, because it's understood that if you sort of leave politicians to their own devices, there are and without the guardrails that the media actually can help to create, well, bad things happen. And we surely see that happening. So, it's unfortunate. I mean, I don't know about you. I'm surely looking at CBS a lot more skeptically than I did before. Where there are less and less media outlets, legacy media outlets that we can count on, it does make the independent media, that much more important. And I just, honestly hope that people won't simply give up on it, but they will look at this sort of with greater skepticism.
Yeah, and that's always a danger when you have a real good legacy brand that's been dramatically, undermined, in short order. Frankly, Time and Newsweek and Sports Illustrated aren't what they used to be. They were, they've someone bought their names and is doing much less actual journalism at those outlets. And that happens, and that's what CBS I think is wants to become. And or is being made to by its owner. And yeah, it's people need to be they need to be good consumers about media. They need to, and there's still places out there. Associated Press is still doing a pretty decent job. The Guardian is doing an excellent job. ProPublica is doing a great job. And
BBC does a good job.
yeah, and so there are places that you can go, and you don't have to rely on some outlet like CBS that clearly is in bed with Trump right now. I mean,
Yeah, and
it's
it's remarkable how quickly this collapse has happened,
right.
right? I mean, how easily it is for the credibility of a once fabled, honored, respected, reliable, credible brand news institution can be undermined. And here we've seen it, and we all have to just be on guard. That means relying on multiple sources to make sure that the information we're getting is really the truth.
Right, and let's remember this is not an accident. I mean, this is actually Viktor Orban's playbook in Hungary, where he got his pals to buy up all the media, and they were suddenly the government is shown in only a good light, and everyone else, all the opposition parties and characters, are shut out of the media. So this is not happening by accident. This is part of trying to control what you think, and so it's super important to to get multiple sources, get multiple, versions of things, and think for yourself and recognize where it's coming from. I mean, don't believe all sources equally because they ain't.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, but the truth is, I'm watching news on TV less than I ever have. That's part of the habit, but especially since the start of the second term of the Trump regime, I've really made it a point to decrease and maybe meaningfully decrease even my cable news watching.
Right.
For not only for relying on information in other places, but also for my mental health.
Yeah, there is that too, Steve.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
thanks a lot, Mark, and look forward to doing this again soon.
Yeah. See you later.